The night that nearly ended my life began like a dream I never wanted to wake up from. The restaurant glowed with warm amber light, the kind that made everything look softer and more forgiving than it really was. Crystal chandeliers shimmered above us, and the quiet hum of conversation blended with soft piano music drifting from somewhere unseen. I remember thinking, very clearly, that this was what happiness was supposed to feel like. I sat across from my husband, Elias Sterling, and watched the way the light reflected off the rim of his glass. Husband. Even now, the word feels strange in my mouth. We had been married for only 2 weeks, yet every time I said it silently to myself, my heart still fluttered. My name is Lydia Brooks. I was 36 years old, recently married, and sitting in the most expensive restaurant in the city, wearing a dress I never thought I'd own, across from a man I believed had saved me from loneliness. And for a moment, everything felt perfect. "You're smiling again," Elias said gently, tilting his head. His voice was calm, affectionate. "Did I say something amusing?" I shook my head and lifted my glass. The champagne bubbles tickled my nose as I took a sip. "No," I said. "I'm just thinking about how strange it is, how quickly life can change." He smiled in that reassuring way of his, the one that had made me trust him so completely. "Good change," he said. "The best kind." I wanted to believe that. 2 years earlier, I had buried my parents within 6 months of each other. After that, my world shrank to a small apartment downtown and the flower shop where I worked. I was good at my job. Flowers made sense to me. They bloomed, they faded, and they never lied. People, on the other hand, were more complicated. Evenings were the hardest. The apartment was quiet in a way that felt heavy. I would come home, set my keys on the table, and listen to the echo of my own footsteps. Then Elias walked into my life. He came into the shop one afternoon asking for flowers for his mother. "Not roses," he said. "She finds them predictable." That alone had made me smile. He chose orange gerbera daisies, listened when I explained their meaning, and didn't rush me. He came back the next week, and the next. Our relationship moved fast, but it never felt reckless. It felt inevitable. At least, that's what I told myself. That night, the waiter approached our table again, straightening Elias's napkin with practiced care. The restaurant manager had already stopped by twice, greeting my husband by name, treating him like a valued regular. It made me feel oddly invisible, but I brushed the thought away. "You know," Elias said casually, "my mother keeps asking when you'll move your things in." I laughed softly. "Our fortress?" I asked. He chuckled. "Exactly, our fortress." Johanna Sterling. His mother, a woman with a polished presence and a powerful reputation. She worked in city administration, handled housing matters, and seemed to command respect wherever she went. From the first time we met, she treated me warmly. Almost too warmly. The past felt far away that night. Everything felt settled. Then Elias's phone vibrated. He frowned at the screen just for a second. "Business," he said, already standing. "I'll take this in the lobby, order dessert, the raspberry one." He leaned down and kissed my forehead before walking away. I watched him go, admiring how confident he looked, how effortlessly he moved through the room. That was the last peaceful moment of my life. I glanced around while I waited. The restaurant was full of well-dressed couples, quiet laughter, the muted sound of silverware. At the table beside mine sat an elderly woman, alone, stirring her tea without drinking it. She was staring at me. At first, I assumed it was coincidence. Then I smiled politely. She didn't smile back. Her face stirred something in my memory, and suddenly I recognized her. Elsa Miller, a regular customer at the flower shop. She always bought orange gerberas, always paid in cash. Always thanked me as if I'd done her a favor far greater than selling flowers. But this wasn't the Elsa I knew. Her hands were shaking. Her eyes darted toward the lobby entrance, then back to me. Slowly, she stood. She walked toward my table with effort, like her legs might give out at any moment. When she leaned down, her voice was barely louder than the hum of the room. "Listen carefully," she whispered. She smelled faintly of herbs and something sharp, almost medicinal. Before I could respond, she pressed something into my hand. A thick bundle of cash bound tightly with a rubber band. My breath caught. "Call a cab," she whispered urgently. "Go to the restroom, there's a window." "Run," I stared at her, confused. "I think you've made a mistake." "He is not who you think he is," she hissed. Her grip tightened painfully around my fingers. "My daughter married him. She's gone now. Please don't ask questions, just run." My heart began to pound, loud enough that I was sure others could hear it. Before I could speak again, she straightened, turned, and walked away, vanishing toward the exit like she had never been there at all. I sat frozen, the weight of the cash heavy in my palm. Was she confused, delusional, grieving? Then I looked up. Two men stood in the doorway. They were big, bald, wearing dark jackets that didn't belong in a place like this. They scanned the room slowly, deliberately. And then their eyes found me. They didn't look surprised. They looked like they were checking a box. Something inside me snapped into place. Instinct drowned out reason. I stood up so fast my chair tipped over. I grabbed my purse, shoved the money inside, and rushed toward the restrooms without looking back. Behind me, someone gasped. Inside the ladies' room, I locked the door and pressed my back against it, gasping for air. My hands shook violently as I pulled out my phone. A cab. I needed a cab. The window near the ceiling was small and frosted. I climbed onto the counter and looked up. Bars, metal bars set into the frame. My stomach dropped. 3 minutes, the app said. 3 minutes until the car arrived. I had no choice. I reached for the door and froze. The restaurant manager stood on the other side, blocking the exit, his expression flat and cold. "I need to leave," I said. "I'm afraid you'll have to wait," he replied calmly. Behind him, I heard Elias's voice. "It's fine," he said gently. "My wife is just unwell." The sound of a key turning in the lock echoed like a gunshot. I was trapped. The lock clicked into place with a soft, final sound that echoed far louder in my mind than it should have. I stared at the door, at the polished brass handle that moments ago had meant nothing, and now felt like the only thing standing between me and something I didn't yet understand. My reflection stared back at me from the mirror above the sink, eyes wide, skin pale, lips parted as if I'd forgotten how to breathe. "Lydia!" Elias's voice came through the door, calm and concerned. "Are you all right in there?" I didn't answer. My heart was beating so fast it felt like it was trying to escape my chest. I pressed my hand against it as if I could physically slow it down. Think, just think. The elderly woman's words replayed in my head over and over. My daughter married him. She's gone now. Gone could mean anything. Divorce, disappearance, death. My mind latched onto the worst possibility and refused to let go. I backed away from the door and glanced around the restroom. It was elegant, spotless, clearly designed to make people feel comfortable. Soft lighting. Fresh flowers in a vase by the sink. Everything about it screamed safety. And yet I felt like a mouse trapped in a glass box. "Lydia," Elias said again, closer now. "You fainted at the table. The manager locked the door so you wouldn't be disturbed. Take your time." His words were gentle, perfectly reasonable. If someone else had said them, I might have believed them. But something in his tone, too controlled, too measured, sent a chill down my spine. I reached into my purse with shaking fingers and felt the thick bundle of cash. It was real. That woman had been real. My phone buzzed in my hand. Cab arriving. Relief surged through me so sharply it almost made me dizzy. I typed quickly, hands clumsy. "I'm locked in the restroom. I need help. Please wait." No response. I scanned the room again, more carefully this time. There had to be another way out. A service door. A vent. Something. That's when I noticed the ceiling panel above the last stall. It wasn't flush like the others, just slightly misaligned, as if it had been removed and replaced more than once. I didn't think. I acted. I climbed onto the toilet, ignoring the way my knees trembled, and reached up. The panel shifted easily under my fingers. Too easily. With a small push, it slid aside, revealing a dark opening and the faint hum of air moving through metal. A ventilation shaft. I hesitated only a second before pulling myself up, muscles screaming as I dragged my body into the narrow space. The metal was cold and dusty, scraping against my arms and dress. I pushed the panel back into place above me, plunging myself into darkness. I lay there, breathing shallowly, listening. Below me, I heard the restroom door open. "Lydia!" Elias called softly. "Sweetheart!" Footsteps. Slow, unhurried, I pressed myself flat against the metal, every sense sharpened. I could hear him moving around, the faint rustle of fabric, the sound of the sink running. "She's not here," the manager said quietly. A pause. "Check the vents," Elias replied. My blood ran cold. The metal beneath me vibrated slightly as someone touched the vent from below. A sharp knock echoed through the shaft, sending a jolt of panic through my body. "She couldn't fit," the manager said after a moment. Another pause, longer this time. "Make sure," Elias said. I didn't wait to hear more. I began to crawl. The shaft was narrow, barely wide enough for my shoulders. Every movement sent a metallic echo through the space, and I winced with each sound, convinced it would give me away. I crawled blindly, following the faint draft of air, praying it would lead somewhere, anywhere other than back into the restaurant. My arms burned. My dress snagged on a sharp edge, tearing slightly. I bit my lip to keep from crying out. I had no idea how long I crawled. Seconds felt like minutes. Minutes felt like hours. Then, finally, I saw light. A small grate ahead glowed faintly, illuminated by the yellowish light of a service corridor. I kicked at it with my heel once, twice, until it loosened and fell away with a dull clang. I dropped down hard, landing awkwardly on my side. Pain shot through my hip, but I forced myself to stand. The corridor was empty. I ran. I didn't know where I was going, only that I needed to get out of the building. My shoes slipped on the polished floor as I rounded a corner and burst through a door marked "Staff Only." Cold night air hit my face like a slap. I stumbled into the alley behind the restaurant, gasping, lungs burning. The city sounds felt unreal. Traffic, distant voices, a siren far away. Life continuing as if nothing had happened. A car idled at the curb. The cab. I ran toward it, waving my arms. "Please," I shouted. "Please don't leave." The driver's eyes widened as he saw me sprinting toward him, hair disheveled, dress torn. He unlocked the doors just as I reached the car. "Go," I said, climbing in and slamming the door shut. "Just go." He didn't argue. The car pulled away from the curb, tires screeching slightly as he accelerated. Only then did I allow myself to look back. Elias stood at the back door of the restaurant, framed by light. His expression was calm, almost curious. As if he were watching an experiment unfold. Our eyes met. He smiled. I turned forward, heart hammering, and whispered the only word that felt true. "Faster!" The cab sped into traffic, the restaurant disappearing behind us. But the feeling of his gaze lingered, heavy and suffocating. I didn't know where I was going. I didn't know who to trust. All I knew was that my life, the one I thought I had, was gone. And somewhere behind me, a man I had married was already planning his next move. The cab didn't slow down until we were several blocks away. Only then did the driver glance at me in the rearview mirror, his eyes filled with concern. "Miss." "Do you want me to take you to a hospital?" he asked carefully. I shook my head, even though my body ached and my thoughts felt tangled. "No, just keep driving, somewhere public, somewhere busy." He nodded and merged into traffic, choosing a route lined with late-night cafes and convenience stores. Neon signs flickered past the windows, each one a reminder that the world was still awake, still normal, no matter how unreal it felt to me. I wrapped my arms around myself and finally allowed the shaking to begin. It came in waves, uncontrollable as the adrenaline drained from my system. My phone buzzed again in my hand. Unknown number. I didn't answer. A moment later, a text appeared. "You scared me tonight. I was worried. Come home, we'll talk." My stomach twisted. The words were gentle, apologetic, exactly the kind of message a concerned husband would send. If someone else had read it, they would have seen love. I saw a trap. I turned off my phone completely. "Is there somewhere safe I can drop you?" the driver asked. I thought of my apartment, the small, quiet space that had once felt lonely, but now felt like the only place in the world that belonged to me alone. Elias had never been there. He had always insisted we spend time at his place. I'd thought it was convenience, romance, control, a small voice whispered. Yes, I said. I'll tell you where. When we arrived, I paid him extra and waited until the car disappeared down the street before unlocking the door. Inside, the apartment was dark and still. I locked every lock, then leaned against the door, sliding down until I was sitting on the floor. Only then did I cry. Not loud, dramatic sobs, just quiet tears that soaked into my dress as the fear finally found its way out. My mind replayed the night in fragments, the old woman's eyes, the locked door, the sound of Elias's voice calling my name as if nothing were wrong. I didn't sleep that night. Every sound made me flinch. Every shadow seemed to move. I sat on the couch with a lamp on until dawn, clutching my phone, watching the sky slowly lighten through the window. When morning came, clarity followed. I needed answers. The first thing I did was call the flower shop. Hi, it's Lydia, I said when my coworker answered. Did you notice anything strange yesterday? Any unusual customers? There was a pause. Actually, yes. That older woman, Elsa. She came in late, right before closing. She seemed upset. My breath caught. Did she say anything? She asked if you were married. I thought it was odd. She asked for your last name. My heart sank. Elias's name she had known. Did she leave anything behind? I asked. Just this, my coworker said. An envelope. She said to give it to you if you ever needed the truth. An hour later, I was holding the envelope in my hands. Inside were photocopies of documents, marriage certificates, death notices, housing records. Each one told the same story in cold, official language. Women married to Elias Sterling. Women who moved into properties managed or influenced by his mother. Women who disappeared shortly after. Not all were listed as deceased. Some were simply missing. My hands trembled as I read the final note, written in shaky handwriting. He doesn't hurt you loudly. He erases you quietly. I sat back numb. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't paranoia. This was real. And I was next, unless I stopped being predictable. That's when I realized something important. Elias thought I was running. He thought fear would keep me silent. He was wrong. I wasn't going back to him, but I wasn't disappearing either. I was going to make sure I was the last woman whose name ever appeared on a page like this. Outside, the city moved on, unaware of the quiet war that had just begun. And somewhere across town, a man who believed he controlled everything was about to learn what happens when the person you underestimate refuses to stay afraid. I didn't go to the police right away, not because I didn't trust them, but because I knew how this would look. A stack of old documents, a handwritten note from a woman no one could easily locate, a charming, well-spoken husband with no criminal record and a reputation for being devoted. If I walked in unprepared, I wouldn't be believed. And if Elias sensed even a hint of suspicion, he would tighten his grip. So I did the one thing he never expected. I stayed visible. I went to work as usual. I smiled at customers. I posted photos online, coffee cups, city streets, sunsets from my apartment window. Proof of life. Proof that I was still here, still reachable, still predictable. And exactly as I'd hoped, Elias reached out again, this time from a new number. I miss you. I was terrified last night. Please let me explain. I stared at the message for a long time before replying. I scared myself too. I just needed space. The response came instantly. Of course. Take all the time you need. I'm here when you're ready. There it was again. The patience. The understanding. The version of him that made people say, "You're so lucky." I wasn't fooled anymore. Over the next few days, I became a quiet observer of my own life. I replayed every conversation we'd ever had, every joke about me being forgetful, emotional, dramatic. Every time he'd insisted on driving. Every time he'd corrected my memories with gentle certainty. I started writing everything down. Dates. Times. Exact wording. And then I did something that felt almost ridiculous at first. I visited the building records office. Elias had always claimed the apartment he lived in was a family property, inherited years ago. What he never mentioned was how often ownership changed hands, or how frequently those transfers aligned with marriages. Names I recognized from the documents appeared again and again. One of them belonged to a woman named Claire. Claire hadn't vanished completely. She'd moved. It took days of searching, but I finally found a small online forum for survivors of emotional manipulation. Buried deep in a comment thread was a post from 5 years ago. "I think my husband is trying to erase me." The username was anonymous, but the details were unmistakable. Same phrases, same patterns, same mother. I sent a message, my hands shaking as I typed. "I think we were married to the same man." I didn't expect a reply. I got one an hour later. Her name was Claire. She lived 3 states away now. She hadn't reported anything either, not because she didn't want justice, but because she'd barely escaped with her sense of reality intact. "He never touched me," she wrote. "That's how he got away with it. He made me doubt myself so deeply that I thought leaving was my fault." She told me about Elsa, the mother-in-law who watched from the shadows, who checked in under the guise of concern, who never interfered but always knew. "She doesn't stop him," Claire wrote. "She just cleans up after." That night, Elias showed up at my apartment. I hadn't told him where I lived. The knock was soft, polite. "Lydia," he called through the door, his voice calm. "I just want to talk." My heart raced, but I didn't open it. "How did you find me?" I asked. Silence, then a quiet laugh. "You told me once, remember?" I hadn't, but I didn't argue. I stayed quiet, phone in hand, recording everything. "I'm worried about you," he continued. "Running away like this isn't healthy. People will start to think something's wrong." There it was, the threat wrapped in concern. "I'm fine," I said. "I just need time." "I can help you think clearly again," he replied gently. "That's what partners do." I stepped back from the door. "No," I said. "That's what controllers do." The pause on the other side was longer this time. When he spoke again, the warmth was gone. "You're making a mistake." "Maybe," I said, "but it's my mistake to make." Another stretch of silence. Then footsteps retreating. He didn't text me afterward. That scared me more than anything else. The next morning, I took everything I had, documents, recordings, messages, timelines, and walked into a legal aid office recommended by Claire. I didn't dramatize, I didn't accuse, I just presented patterns. And patterns, unlike stories, are hard to ignore. It didn't end quickly. Real life never does. There were interviews, follow-ups, quiet investigations. Other women were contacted. Some didn't respond. Some did. Elsa stopped appearing in public records. Elias stopped reaching out. Months later, I heard through someone else that he'd moved. New city. New job, new name variation, but this time there was a trail, and he wasn't alone in it anymore. I still check my locks at night. I still pause before trusting too easily. But I'm here, not erased, not quiet, not small. And if there's one thing I know now, it's this: the most dangerous people don't look dangerous. They look safe. They sound reasonable. They make you doubt your own voice. So if something inside you whispers that something isn't right, listen. That whisper might be the bravest part of you trying to survive. And survival, sometimes, is the beginning of telling the truth.